like to give the floor to our Global Director, Cocoa, Tea and Coffee, Jordy van Honk, for our panel on living income.
Thank you, Els, and good morning to all of you. I'm coming to you out of a study room in my house in Amsterdam. I would have much rather been with you in Antwerp at the Chocolate Nation. Hopefully we can do that next time again. Also from my side, from the IDS Global Management side, thank you so much for keep on showing your commitment to this program and be here today with so many people. That's absolutely fantastic. Also, congratulations to the team for setting up this webinar. I think it's working quite well so far, and I hope to see some more interaction also in the chat box if we go on. Let me also not forget to applaud Philippe and thank him so much for taking up the chair role and for your inspiring words at the beginning. I think a lot of us will definitely agree with you that we have to take this time, this crisis time, and see and reflect on how we can build back better. That's a phrase that we see coming up a lot also in the Netherlands. So very happy to hear that you are also about that, and thank you to the steering committee for all your hard work over the past year. Without further ado, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive now in I think one of our most challenging and at the same time also most inspiring work on living income. Inspiring because this initiative, Beyond Chocolate, is one of the most ambitious initiatives, and some people say even the most ambitious initiative, not even in cocoa, but beyond cocoa even, when it comes to clearly saying, explicitly saying that you would like to see farmers at least earning a living income by 2030, the farmers supplying the cocoa to Belgium. So that's very inspiring and challenging, as said. Challenging because the gaps are so big and so many initiatives have tried before to raise incomes of farmers and they have shown mixed results, of course, as we all know. The good news is that we have seen so much enthusiasm to see how we can work together more, find new approaches. And we can already see now that also under this Beyond Chocolate that there have been so many conversations between the different parts of the supply chain, and I think that's the biggest impact that we have already made so far, even beyond the projects that we will show in a minute, and that my fellow panelists will introduce. I think the conversations in the trade are there. They will continue. They go even up to board level, and I think that level of conversation we need to continue to have. In trade partners trying to find together solutions to this wicked problem. And then I think what was already mentioned before, but I can't stress it from my side enough either, is the fact that we have to do this together. So not only companies together with their customers, with their suppliers, but definitely also in collaboration with the civil society, with the knowledge institutes, with the certification organizations, and definitely also with the origin governments. Also from my side, very happy to hear how Beyond Chocolate is relating itself to the other platforms in Europe. We hear that a lot from the contacts also that we have from our global management at IDH in the cocoa sector, that people would applaud that collaboration. And that is very encouraging to hear that that's happening here. From my side, since I'm quite closely involved in the DISCO discussions in the Netherlands, I can only say as well from that side that we will also want to join that collaboration. Without further ado, let me introduce the panelists. I've never moderated a panel in this way, so normally we would have a chit-chat before, I think in the corridors of the Chocolate Nation. We haven't been able to do that, but I don't know if you can already show your cameras or put on your cameras. But firstly, we have Karen Janssens. Hi, Karen. Good morning. From Colruyt, working as an expert in sustainable sourcing for Colruyt. We have Taco. Good morning, Taco. Taco Terheijden. As the Director of Cocoa Sustainability for Cargill. And we have Vicente Balseca, the ethical and sustainability project manager for Galera. Oh, I think there's a bit of a sound problem. So maybe we have to keep on being muted, and then I give you one by one the floor, I guess. Yeah, okay, thank you. And we also have Vicente. Yeah, hi Vicente. Hi. Good, great. So we're complete. The team is complete. Great. Let's start with you, Karen, and it would be wonderful, I think, for you to introduce the project, the Living Income, that Colruyt is leading, and of course you have a lot of other partners. It would be wonderful if you could highlight who they are, and if you could tell us a little bit more about the approach that you're taking in this project, and maybe already also show a bit how you think it could grow to scale in the years to come. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much to EDH, first of all, for selecting the project. We were very happy to receive the news, and also for giving the opportunity now to represent it on behalf of the partnership. As you can see on the slide, this is quite an elaborate partnership with a range of very diverse partners. So myself, I'm working for Colruyt Group, who is the lead partner, but we've also co-developed this project together with Fairtrade Belgium and Ricolto, who have a lot of experience working directly with the farmer organizations. Also, the Entreprise Coopérative de Saint-Paul, which is the farmer cooperative, has been involved in elaborating this project and is a partner. And then we have the University of Ghent, Puratos, and Access Agriculture and Agro Insight. Do you want me to go already into the living income concept, or do you just want me to briefly present the project in 2-3 lines, or shall I give already a little bit of in-depth information on the model?
Yeah, I think it's best if you could do a bit of a deep dive on living income.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, you're free to introduce the other topics high level, but the idea would be to show a bit in depth the approach you take on living income. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification. So the approach we take on living income is actually a very holistic and integrated approach in which price only plays, I would not say a minor role, but it's really only part of a whole set of interventions. The different areas we decided to look at are, on the one hand, of course, productivity and quality improvement, but we are also looking at income diversification, at agroforestry and reforestation, and of course also at price. Maybe to start with a price, we take the living income reference price as the reference. We have calculated, or we are calculating, starting from the farm gate price. What is important is then we have different premiums. No, it is fair trade. Also, Puratos has its own program, is also giving premiums, but there we only calculate a premium that's really going directly to the farmer. We will also do that for the living income differential. So we will only look at the part that the government of Côte d'Ivoire will transfer to the farmers. And then we, of course, have a gap at the end with regard to the living income reference price. And Colruyt has then taken the commitment to fill this gap. We have set a separate fund aside for this. Currently, based on the current market prices, this is about a Colruyt premium would be around $160. So that's the price. But as I said already, and we are talking about this with the partners and with the whole value chain in a very transparent way, which is quite important, I think. But the other aspects beyond price are as important to reach in the end a living income for the farmers that will be sustainable. As you mentioned, Jordy, there have been thousands of projects and results are very mixed so far. So we have taken the option for a quite small project. This was also one of the remarks we got back from EDH. Now we have only, or we have 102 families, so a little bit over 1,000 persons in the value chain to start with. Of course, we have an upscaling strategy, but we think it's important to be able to work on this small scale to check our assumptions on these parameters. So for instance, on quality, what we will do is currently the fermentation and the drying process is done mostly in banana leaves, or yeah, they bring it to the processing centers in central places quite far away, for instance, San Pedro. But this deteriorates the quality. So what we will do, and that's very new in Côte d'Ivoire, we will establish decentralized drying and fermentation centers, where we will also create employment opportunities, especially for women and farmers. So we think this can really enhance quality. Myself, I have 4 years of experience of working with cacao farmers in Nicaragua, in Central America. Their decentralized fermentation centers are very common. They are owned with cooperatives, and it works actually very well. Then with regard to productivity, we want to increase productivity. The farmers we will work with have more or less 250 hectares. And what's interesting is that we will focus on increasing productivity, but on less land, so as to free up land for reforestation and for the other component, income diversification. For income diversification, we will look at crops such as cassava, peat chicks, to enable the farmers to generate also income apart from cacao. For the moment being, around 80% of their income comes from cacao, but we will also invest really in this diversification strategy. And then the one I didn't mention yet is the reforestation and the agroforestry approach. So we will encourage and train farmers to reform their plots to agroforestry plots. We will, of course, there are already monitoring systems in place, and we will make sure there is no new forest encroachment. That's a condition sine qua non, of course. And we will also, together with Curatos, plant on 1,000 hectares 80,000 shade trees. I think that's in brief a little bit the overview of what we plan to do.
Thank you so much, Karen. And maybe a follow-up question before I go and ask the other panelists to introduce their projects. Mm-hmm. How will this help to fulfill your Beyond Chocolate commitments?
In many ways, actually, because one of the first concrete outputs of the project will be that in 1 year's time, actually, we will be selling within Colruyt a new tablet, Boni 72%, which will ensure a living income to those farmers. That's a very first concrete product, I think. It will also build towards ensuring zero deforestation with the reforestation program of 80,000 trees. And of course, I think this project will really give us insights in how we can fully leverage our power as a sustainable buyer. We sell, of course, more. Our ambition is to scale this model up through all our private labels. This is a kind of a new role, because normally a retailer is focused on price, and we are actually also buying tablets. We are not even interacting a lot, or we're not with Curatos, Callebaut, or Cargill, because we were buying our suppliers or the tablet makers. So I think this is a change of a role. We are involved much more in the value chain. It's not new for Colruyt. We have 10 value chains or products with value chains where we have full transparency. But I think it's a little bit a different role than our core and traditional role. And I think this project will give us a lot of insights into what we can do better, what works well, and what needs to be adjusted.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So a new role for Colruyt. It's very inspiring to hear. To the whole crowd, if you have questions on this particular project, please put them in the Q&A, and then maybe in the second round I can pick one of those questions for Karen to answer. Let me now thank you, Karen, for introducing this project and your approach. Let me now move to Vicente Balseca from Galère. Can I ask you the same question to introduce the project and your living income approach? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Maybe if you allow me, I would like to present first the context and the Galère new strategy.
Absolutely, go ahead. Perfect,
thanks. So last year, Galère has begun a fully transformation of the company. So we have adopted an innovative paradigm, ending with power relationships in favor of a convergence interest approach. This means a 360 degrees strategy, which includes all the company stakeholders, beginning by the cocoa producers and ending by the consumers. So our new driver is the 3P strategy: people, planet, and profitability, which the company has started to fully implement in 2020. And at that moment, a lot of work has been done. So regarding the P of people, we are implementing a new collaborative management approach and the first trade strategy. And regarding the P of planet, we have evaluated our environmental footprint, and we will reduce it, of course. And we have launched an agroforestry project. So the company has also adopted a consumer responsible approach, integrating nutritional values in the confection of its products. Consumers are key for a sustainable market transition. So we need to change consumers into consume actors, raising their sustainability awareness and making them an important actor of change. And that's the goal, of course, of Galère and of our new strategy. So regarding our, more specifically, our producers approach, this project, which is co-financed by the Beyond Chocolate Fund, is part of our holistic strategy. So first, by the end of this year, we will have switched 100% of our cocoa beans to Fairtrade certified ones. And secondly, we have, with the financial support of the Business Partnership Facility Fund, managed by the King Baudouin Foundation, and in partnership with the University of Liège, Fairtrade Belgium, and Yeyaso, which is an Ivorian cooperative, we have launched the project People, Planet, and Cocoa, which aims to implement an economically positive agroforestry approach. We are restoring biodiversity, making cocoa parcels more resilient, increasing producers' incomes, and encouraging gender equality. So this Beyond Chocolate co-finance project, which we will implement in partnership with the TDC, Enabel, with Zoto, with Yeyaso, the cooperative, and with the University of Ghent, is a part of a more complete strategy to reach the living income and to allow the producers mainly to reach the living income. As the cooperative says, we want to make them strong in-house to play in the Cocoa Champions League. And it's something I really like as image, you know. We will play now the Champions League of the cocoa sector. And so this project is inspired by a circular economy approach. We will implement some complementary activities, increasing producers' incomes in a sustainable way. Firstly, concerning the organic cocoa production, it is based on the agroecological assumption that good agricultural practices in combination with intercropping reduce the need of expensive agricultural inputs. So organic production practices decrease the need for costly pesticides. Intercropping with trees enhances natural nitrogen addition to the soil. And moreover, agroforestry enhances soil cover, reducing soil erosion and the need for excessive and costly fertilized application. Yeah, I read that part because it's more technical and I have some help from my partners. But the objective is that by training the producers to good agricultural practices and shade tree planting, we will improve the cocoa field's yield and generate new incomes from diversification. Furthermore, the production costs will decrease, and of course, the organic production will beneficiate to a market premium, which will also increase the producers' incomes. At the same time, with this project, we will implement poultry husbandry. This poultry farming will create a diversification source income, an additional diversification source income, by the selling of chickens and eggs, and we will give to the producers a cheaper protein source, which is also a benefit for them and their health, of course. Furthermore, we will use the chicken faces. Sorry, I see there is a question from Marlus, but okay. Furthermore, we will use the chicken faces, I say, for as fertilizer for the organic plantations. So as you can see, we implement a circular economy logic. You know, we put poultry as boundary, and we use the faces, the rests, to fertilize the soils of our organic productions. On another way, through extensive trainings on post-harvest processing for quality and flavor diversification, so giving emphasis to the importance of consistency and organoleptic quality, the cooperative will be able to attract the attention and interest of new potential buyers, showing the in-house capacity to achieve and offer the long-term high-quality cocoa with distinct character. Concretely, it will increase the cocoa beans value, improving the quality of the cocoa beans, and make the semi-premium market accessible to the cooperative's producers. And finally, we will give to the cooperative marketing and management coaching, which will ensure it to be empowered enough to develop the new market opportunities given by the project. So it's not just to improve the agricultural practices, it's not just to improve the quality of the cocoa, it's our project aims to really empower the cooperative to make it strong enough to develop by itself after the gallery intervention. So our main objectives is that the cocoa produced by the organic cocoa produced or the higher quality cocoa beans produced not just have to be sold to Galère. The cooperative needs to be able to find new markets and to develop and to go bigger, because our project is our pilot project. It's just with 150 producers, and the scale is not so big. But we want to give to the cooperative the knowledge to make it bigger if they find it's a good way and it's a good opportunity of development. Yes. So, but that way, with Galère, we hope to create a systemic impact, allowing the producers to reach the living income, and we will. So we do a lot of activities, and each activity give a little income, you know, with a little improve in the incomes, and we hope to reach a living income by diversifying and improving the quality of the cocoa beans.
Thank you, Vicente. Thank you so much for introducing this and showing how Galère has changed its policies and is now introducing this project. Maybe one follow-up question from me. How did your end customers respond to this? Can you share something about that?
Yes. The truth is that they haven't responded yet, because we think to communicate about our new project the 31st of March, but with the Corona crisis, we haven't done it. Oh. So we will communicate about the project, I think, in September, and when it will be done, I will be able to answer the question. But at the moment, our consumers doesn't know what we are doing.
Thanks. And this is, of course, one cooperative that you're mentioning. How many do you have in your supply chain, give or take?
Sorry, excuse me.
How many cooperatives do you aim to scale this project?
Oh, we work with one cooperative.
And do you envision to scale it to others as well?
Maybe. But I think that for us, for Galère, the sustainability approach is quite new. and we need also to learn. So we will have a learning curve together with the cooperative, and
Very good.
now we have a very good partner with whom we can work, and we work well. So by the moment, we focus just on that cooperative, and maybe later we can grow, but first we need to learn.
Thank you for that, Vicente, and well introduced. So again, here, if there are questions for the second round, please put them in the chat box. Questions to Vicente. Thank you, Vicente, for now.
Perfect, thanks.
Let me move to Taco. Taco Terheijden from Cargill. Taco, can I ask you the same question? Can you also introduce the project? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jordy, and hi everybody. And thanks for organizing this and for giving us opportunity to share our thoughts behind the proposal and the project. So, well, in line with the other projects, but very much in line with the objectives of Beyond Chocolate. The project has really two strong pillars. One is a deforestation agroforestry pillar, but we also will include obviously a living income component, and we try to combine the two. And as you already said in this introduction, this is probably the most ambitious platform when it gets to living income, and as we're heavily involved in many sustainability initiatives, I would say across the globe too, we haven't. I would like if we say we would have cracked the code on living income. So that's also why we're happy to be pushed to explore things that can contribute to that solution, however it will be. We do not look so much at price as such. So basically, we assume the price is as it is along the project, but it's good to realize that all of our participating farmers are already certified and receiving premiums already. So that is not the focus of this project. But what do we then try to do? Focusing, and here you see our partners. Pure Project is an international partner working very much in the agroforestry domain. They have a model that works on incremental revenues through, I would say, planting different type of trees, obviously increasing the biodiversity, but also ultimately increasing the revenues that come from the forest. This can be trees, this can be nuts, this can be wood, this can be fruit. So that's the model that they are working on, and we're doing that already in Ivory Coast and looking to other countries. So that's something we will do. But at the same time, we will also combine that, and I think that's the innovation this project captures, with an existing partner of ours, Empower Her. We will work with the very much women's groups in those communities, and we aim to establish microfinance enterprises that actually will benefit from selling inputs in support of that agroforestry project. So really trying to set up sort of a micro enterprise that supports the agroforestry expansion in the region. And those two things combined, so the additional revenue from the Pure project as such, as well as the additional revenue from, in a way, diversification of income from that community. That is something that we haven't done before, and that we aim to do that. We're targeting 1,200 farmers. That is 2 or 3 cooperatives in the San Pedro area. Yeah, and that is. I mean, we didn't. Frankly, we didn't know if it was a big or a small project, because in a way it's where our total supply chain in Ivory Coast is 140 cooperatives. So this is for us, this is relatively small, but it builds on existing work in other cooperatives, and it's innovative where it tries to combine these two things. The third
before you go on, Taco, there is a bit of a problem with your microphone. I don't think it's that much the connection, but it's more it's cracking a bit. So I don't know if you have an external microphone somewhere.
Yeah, I will try. Well, I usually have a problem with that one, so that's why I.
You switched. Yeah.
That's why I was asked not to use that, but that's.
It might also be connection, but then I maybe try also to switch off your video. So then we try again. We could hear you, at least I could, but it was with a lot of cracking noise.
I don't know if this is better, but I hear you very poorly, Jordy, what you said.
It seems to be the same, at least for me. I don't know if anyone else has the same.
Now it's somewhat stable. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Now it seems to be okay. Oh, Karen says it's worse, but if you can try again.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Please go on. Please go
I
on.
hear you. I hear you quite well now, Jordy. So I don't
Okay, great. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So your only question was about the noise, right? There was no other question that I missed.
That was the question and suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Good.
I don't know whether you were true. I think you still wanted to introduce some elements of the project, right?
Yeah, actually, sort of the third one. Right? There's a deforestation, agroforestry component. There's a living income component, and there is also the linkage to the Belgian market component. And obviously, we aim to integrate this into our Belgian supply chain. But we're also still in, I would say, negotiating and thinking phase how we can make a stronger link to some of the branded products that we have for the Belgian market, and then it's really all making that that connection even stronger, and that is then how we aim to support the overall Beyond Chocolate objectives. So this is high level what we aim to achieve in the next 3 years.
Thank you so much, Taco. And I'm aware that Cargill is already quite advanced in measuring farmer incomes in your supply chain. Can you maybe share with the group how you go about it and how you relate it to living income benchmarks?
Yes, of course. We have developed a farm economic model. I would say with advice of Wageningen University, and also sharing this through and with the living income community of practice. It's a model that tries to capture obviously various elements, both on the income, on the revenue, and in the cost side. And then we use that information to track progress over time. I say that we obviously we want to see the development of living income as it's a crucial part into what we consider is the ultimate goal, and that is farmer resilience. And if we have this insight, the resilience of farmers, we believe can be measured. We will benchmark this, and we do share the progress from that model in relation to, for instance, the benchmark set by others. And we do hope this project contributes to scoring better against that benchmark. One of the challenges that we have on that is actually also, which is not linked to this project, but it's another area we're also working on with IDH, is well, how do you measure it better? How do you judge and value labor costs, which is a big component, and to that extent, this project is interesting because we're going to ask a lot from these farmers, even more. So the labor part also needs to be well valued to have a real idea of what the net contribution to living income is in the end. So to that extent, it connects with other work that we're doing already.
Thank you so much, Taco. There was again a bit of issue with your sound, so I will repeat a little bit. But some people suggest that maybe you have a lot of programs running on your PC. Maybe all those farm economic models are running, I don't know, at your PC. That might also help to switch them off. Thank you for, I don't know who said that, but that might be helpful. Just to repeat what Taco was saying, so he says that Cargill is already very advanced in measuring farmer incomes in their supply chain, and that they are also quite advanced with development of a farm economics model, together with Wageningen University and in collaboration with the Community of Practice, Living Income Community of Practice. And it would be fantastic maybe in one of the learning events that we will have if we can go a bit more in depth on that one. Taco would be quite inspiring, I think, for other companies or stakeholders as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Taco, for that. We will come back to you in the second round. Hopefully then the sound is even better. Again, let me also go to the Q&A. And everyone still feel free to put in your questions. Checking. Okay, so there was a question for Karen, and maybe it's also nice for the others to respond to that as well. And that is, how are you involving local cooperatives? Maybe even governments, also local governments, in really how do you see that whole embedding of the farmer in your projects, and how much can they also steer the work, right? The farmers, because it's also their future. Would you like to start giving an answer to that, Karen? How you do it in your project?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's also linked with the question of Charles Snow, so how we have involved the farmers so far. It's always a difficult balance, because on the one hand, since we didn't know how, if the project would be approved, you cannot be too explicit about that, because then you start raising all kind of expectations. But we consulted them. It's Ricolto sat down with them, and actually the 6 parameters that have been identified on which we would work, so the basis of the living income model and the business model, has been co-constructed with them. It's also the aim in the future and during the 3 years of the project to keep the farmers in the driver's seat. We have a few strategies to do that. Of course, 2 of our partners, Fairtrade and Ricolto, are very experienced in accompanying farmer organizations. On the one hand, we will support them on more technical cocoa-related farm issues, but we take again a more holistic approach. Ricolto is using a lot scope insight to professionalize farmer organizations, which has a component on formation and strengthening the capacities of farmers, also in not only in management issues, but also to influence the enabling environment of the cacao chain, etc. And apart from that, I think that's not really within the project, but Fairtrade has a women leadership program, which is a little bit more holistic around personal development, and we will also encourage the women farmers we are working with to apply for that program. So to have a more holistic personal development approach, which again, in turn, I think reinforces the voice of the farmers, which heightens the chances that they can really weigh on the processes. With regard to the government, it's not, we don't have very targeted actions. Of course, they are a stakeholder. And again, we try with this, with figuring out this business model, we are trying to contribute in some way to a systemic change. No, if we can find some breakthrough mechanisms, we will definitely try to scale this up. Each partner has already committed to a scaling up strategy. And again, I think Fairtrade and Ricolto have bigger programs, and within their programs, also within the Fairtrade living income strategy, working on this enabling environment with the governments of producing countries is certainly an aspect. So it's more linking up there, yeah, than really from within the project. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was I think a question from Charles, so hopefully it's answered. And maybe a follow-up question from me, Karen, also what I asked Taco, how do you go about measuring farmer income? Are you already quite advanced, or will that also be a learning in this project, so that you can really properly measure where farmers are now and where they ideally go to reach the living income?
Yeah, I think as Colruyt, it's certainly a learning domain. We have one other direct sourcing chain for cacao from Nicaragua, where farmers receive a good income, but we didn't approach it through the living income angle. So that's definitely new. Of course, we have Fairtrade, who has been one of the leaders on living income in a partnership. So for the partnership as a whole, we think we have a basis. We still have to establish the baseline, and we will use the Anker and Anker methodology, and we will also, so we will really focus on the area Colonel and Daregba, where we are working, to fine-tune a little bit income streams and also costs of productions at that level. But we will, of course, also take the general living income reference and living income reference price as a guiding star, or yeah. And so we will start off now in June with establishing the baseline.
Good, great. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you, Karen. Maybe going to Vicente for a second round. You already mentioned a lot that the cooperative, the partnership with the cooperative and the cooperative to be self-sustaining eventually after the project is key to you. Do you maybe want to share a bit more detail on how you see that role of the cooperative and the farmers in your project?
Yes, with pleasure. For me, it's an interesting question, you know, how we involve the cooperative in the project, because it's quite like the cooperative involves us in the project. It is a demand from the cooperative that they say, okay, we are now working about agroforestry, but how can we go further? And we want to go work about organic topics, you know. So the project is really a demand that we have built together with the cooperative during a mission in January. So it is very involved, and what we want to do is to create synergies and to valorate the local knowledge that is already in Ivory Coast. You know, we work together with the TDC of the Trade for Development Center of Enabel, that has a coaching program and works since a lot of time with other cooperatives. And in its network, there are already cooperatives that have other cooperatives that have, for example, already implement a poultry husbandry. So we will use that network, that local knowledge, to improve our project. And we are trying to create really create a sharing of knowledge and valorate, and we want really to valorate the local knowledge. But the project is a demand that comes from the cooperative, and in our case, the cooperative participates in the financing, in the founding of the project.
Thank you very much. So very interesting that they actually came to you and dragged you in the project, which is very good. Maybe Taco, going to you. Hopefully, yeah, we can even hear you better than before. You mentioned Cargill works with 140 cooperatives, huge scale. You've already done a lot of work with these cooperatives and still doing a lot of work with them. Can you maybe share a bit how your approach looked like? And of course, at least myself, I'm very inspired by your whole digitization work that you do with a lot of those cooperatives. Maybe you can share something about that as well.
Yes, yes, there I am. Do you hear me okay? Otherwise, I will switch off the video.
Maybe keep the video off. For now, it seems to be better, but to be sure, maybe it's better to keep the video off. Okay.
Yes, well, it's also good. Yeah, we do a lot. Never enough, of course, and never with quick enough progress. But I think that is that's nothing new. Yeah, maybe one thing to say, and we have more and more data, not only on the farmer economic model, and rest assured, I don't run the model. I have way smarter people in my team who do that, so it's not on my laptop. But that also helps actually for the relevant scoping of this project. And your question around how do you engage co-ops, that is of course, I mean, we work with them, we have an existing relationship, but also more and more we can use our insights to make these type of projects, I would say, more successful, because they can be applied based on ecological relevance, or they can be applied through where there is a high risk of deforestation that we see through our mapping, and that is that link to that digitalization, because not only is the data more and more digitally collected, which is a challenge in itself, but if you have the right process and the right systems, the data quality becomes way more consistent. And when you have consistent data, you can of course analyze them, and you can combine them with other types of data. And it's that overlay of various data systems that we now more and more use to be more targeted. And that is, I mean, there is of course a lot to do everywhere, but very often particularly on agroforestry and deforestation risk, we can be targeted where the risk is highest, and we start from there. For this project, we of course also need to see what is I would say, the appetite and the involvement and the I would say the chance of success to engage these women groups. I mean, you can walk into a community and tell people they need to become a micro enterprise, or you can have information from other projects where they have referenced or have done this in the past, which makes your chance of success higher. And if you combine these two things, which you're able to do to make those connections through data analytics, then you aim to be more successful. So that is a bit how we approach these things and how we use that data. And of course, these co-ops are also involved. I mean, they're all mapped farmers. More and more we implement barcode traceability, so we have stronger traceability information. So that's the route that we're taking, not specifically for this project, but the farmers that we work with will be engaged through those projects, basically through the Cargill Cocoa Promise anyway.
Thank you, Taco, and we could hear you now very clear. So it worked. Thank you.
Good.
Let me go to the chat box and Q&A box. So it's very challenging for a moderator these days. Many boxes. So apparently there was a question in the answered box, but it wasn't answered yet. And that was not to you, Taco, I can see. It's to Vicente. How many farmers are involved in the project, and how do you measure the living income, and when do you expect them to reach the living income? You also mentioned that this whole journey is quite new to Galère, so I can also imagine that you still have to figure these things out, but giving you the opportunity to answer this question. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. But first, you're right, it's quite new for us. So how many farmers are involved? There are more or less 150 farmers, and the project is 200 hectares long. So it's quite small. And for the measurement of the living income, we are working with Fairtrade Belgium to implement a methodology that they have created to measure the impact of the living income projects that are implemented in the field. So I can't give more explanations about it at that moment because we are working. But we work with Fairtrade Belgium for that. And when do we expect to reach the living income? Our goal, so this project is a 5 years project. And our goal with our complementary approach, so the switch to Fairtrade certified cocoa, the agroforestry program, and this project, all together, we hope that it will allow the producers to reach the living income into 5 years. But we will measure it very carefully, and of course we will adapt the project in function of the results we will have.
Thank you, Vicente. I think that answered the question. Let me check whether there are other questions. I think there was one question from Patrick. I think it's the Beyond Chocolate commitment is to reach living income for all the cocoa imported in Belgium by 2030. We see here projects that are touching a bit more than 10,000 farmers. Of course, that's a small start, and we can already hear that companies like Cargill have already a much bigger program, so which will probably also be relevant for Beyond Chocolate as a whole. And his question is, how do we make sure we accelerate from those farmers and we accelerate the learnings gained in the pilot projects to go to scale and reach that target, hopefully. Taco, do you maybe want to say something about that?
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, it's a very, I think it's a very relevant question, and the obviously the farmers involved, even from all the proposals, won't cover the total bean equivalent for Belgium, and that's why I think I really see Beyond Chocolate is very ambitious in its targets, and I think therefore it's important that, as all the participants have done, involve the right partners and involve multiple partners. Because if we will see this call them innovations or new things that we're trying beyond what we are already doing, it will obviously be expanded to other projects, to other suppliers, and potentially also to other players. I think that's also the benefit of doing this, under a Beyond Chocolate platform. At least from our side, we are very open and willing to show, I would say, success and failures over time, for the simple reason that it has to then to be picked up also by others to reach the desired scale. And I think that is the only way to go. Also a small sort of, if you on living income, if you make that a precondition from the start, it will obviously be very difficult. But if you set an ambitious target and then provide the right, I would say, enabling environment for players to work towards that, I think that is the way to go about it. And basically incentivize innovations, share learnings, and then make it part of, I would say, the standard. That is at least what we aim to do.
Thank you so much, Taco. Makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe Karen, do you want to reflect on this question as well?
Yeah, I think Taco summarized it quite well, actually. I think we can, within the project scale, we start off with a small number of these 100 families, but within the project we've already foreseen with commitments from the different partners like ourselves, but also Puratos, Fairtrade and Ricolto have taken commitments for upscaling, and then we reach already several thousands of farmers. And then there is the second upscaling beyond the project, and then I'm looking at IDH, I think, and this Beyond Chocolate initiative, where I think it's really crucial to enable co-creation and to enable collective impact, that we keep the conversation going and that we try to be as transparent as possible about what works well, but above all about what doesn't work as we expected, because that's often where we can learn the most. So I think both the projects have a role to play and will help and will inform with their learnings, but also, of course, the whole Beyond Chocolate initiative itself is crucial for the upscaling in the end. And we need to keep each other accountable, I think, as signatories.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. And we will do our best as IDAs to facilitate that. And indeed, very good to do that with this group, but also with the other platforms in Europe. As was already mentioned, and maybe sometimes also go beyond cocoa for the learnings.
Yeah, sure.
There's also quite a lot going on in coffee now, to my knowledge. But indeed, it's that space for collaboration and innovation that we need to keep on creating. Absolutely, thank you. I see a comment in the box from our I want to say our, but I'm Dutch, but still we are now in Beyond Chocolate, the Belgian ambassador in Abidjan, Honorary Michael Wimmer, and he basically said, I don't know if we can give Michael the floor for a minute, if that's possible, Marloes, but otherwise I will just read out his comments. Possible, Marloes, or not?
I will try to allow him to speak. Just Voilà. Normally, Michael should be able to talk now.
No, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
We do. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for the presentation. Thank you also for the outstanding webinar. I think it's really extremely stimulating and interesting. My comment was in general just to say that, first of all, it is great to learn more about the projects on the ground, especially in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, which I'm in charge of. I think Galère tackled the question of communication to the end consumer, which is very important. I think at the end of the day, one of the driving forces of the projects are communication to the end consumers. From my side, what I would like to stimulate as well is communication to the broad public in Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and perhaps also other countries that are involved. And there, I think there is a need for success stories, very understandable stories of what's happening. Of course, I mean, the whole debate on living income is important, but when it comes back to very substantial issues and very practical issues, I think it's very understandable by the broader public. And so I would encourage to do that as well. And of course, the embassy remains available for support.
Thank you so much, and I fully agree, and we will keep on engaging as Beyond Chocolate with you on that. I think else that's definitely in the plan, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. I think I need to come to a close for this panel. Maybe very last question to our panelists. How does COVID-19 affect the implementation of these projects? Maybe if you can say quickly something about that, because of course we live in a different world, and we can say these projects are now approved and are going to run, but we also have a different reality in the field. Karen, can you say something about it?
Yeah, sure. For this question, I just called yesterday with the colleagues from Ricolto, who are based in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And so, yeah, I think it's a bit obvious, the impact. It's a risk in the delay. We are currently, for instance, contracting the person who will coordinate the efforts on the ground. But of course, due to restrictions with regard to travel, moving, etc., this might have a small delay. Also, probably or a risk for lower yields, because farmers are limited in going to their cacao fields, and of course the productivity is linked in part to the pruning and things you're doing. And also he identified a higher risk for deforestation and child labor due to, on the one hand, the unavailability of labor, due again to the travel restrictions, and also due to the lower monitoring and evaluation monitoring visits. However, in an optimistic scenario, he was thinking that things by August, September would go back to normal. And the good news is, to end on a positive note, that the more than 90% of the cases is situated in the big cities. So for the moment being, the countryside has been spared quite a lot, which is good news, because if in the communities where we are working, like Colonel and Daregba, there would be one contamination, the risk of contaminating the whole village is very high, because people sleep with 4 or 5 people in one room. But for the moment being, there is no contamination in the regions we're working in.
Thank you for that, Karen. I don't know whether Taco or Vicente want to share a bit about the corona impact as well.
Yeah, I would say a bit similar. Countryside seems to be relatively spared till now. I mean, what that means, the future will tell. But also from our side, the impact, well, not the overall impact, but the impact on the actual projects, if you can look at it in isolation, should be fairly limited, as most of our partners also have their staff in field, so it doesn't require a lot of traveling from the big cities to the communities and cooperatives where this is planned. Obviously, we need to observe closely how this will evolve, but we're not too negative or pessimistic that this might have a huge impact on the implementation of this specific project. So that is relatively hopeful that we can start soon.
Indeed. Okay, thank you, Taco. All right, I think we have to come to a close. Thank you so much, Karen, Taco, Vicente, and all of you online to ask your questions. And of course, I'm pretty sure these partners are ready to answer even more questions also offline. So thank you for your presentations, and of course, good luck with the implementation of the projects, and I hope we can see them going to scale also quite soon. Thank you so much. I think going back to you, Els, now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jordy. I'm just going to share my screen. Voila. And now I hope you can see my presentation mode. So yes, we've now come to so a short update on signatories. Beyond Chocolate is, of course, what it is thanks to the numerous partners and signatories in the partnership. As you know, we started off with quite an interesting group already. And in 2019, during the General Assembly of September 2019, we were joined by not only Nestlé, but also by Samilia Foundation, where Sylvie Bianchi also took the lead then afterwards for one of the working groups, the one on youth and decent work. So very happy about them joining. And last December, we were also joined by another group of interesting partners, Galer, that we know now quite well. Thank you, Vicente. The impact investor Lita.co, who joined Belvas for some crowdfunding activities. So also an interesting aspect, the access to finance for projects in Europe and the European market, but also impact investing. Interesting that they are joining our group of impact investors for farmer finance in general. Baroni, also a very interesting player, happy to have them on board since December. And last but not least, the Port of Antwerp. We hope to involve them some more also in the general functioning of the partnership, given their importance for the import and export activities in and around Belgium. But we are welcoming today yet another signatory. So here he is. I'm happy to introduce Andrew Brooks, the VP and Head of Sustainability for Olam. And I will leave Andrew the floor for a short introduction on why he is joining Beyond Chocolate and how Olam sees the whole living income ambition in and around Beyond Chocolate. You have the floor, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Els. So, good morning, everyone. So, as Olam Cocoa, I must say we're very pleased to join Beyond Chocolate. We see their ambitions for the Belgian and we hope even European and global and chocolate industry as very much we share and champion these ambitions. So our vision as Olam Cocoa, which features in our Olam Cocoa Compass, I must say is for an environmentally positive, professionalized, quality-focused cocoa supply chain comprised of farmers who are earning a living income and whose children have access to education. So in that respect, we look forward to working in multi-stakeholder partnerships with many of the members of Beyond Chocolate across all the producing countries, so we can make our mutual ambitions a reality for the benefit of all our farmers across the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for that contribution, and happy to have you on board. We are also happy to have Alexander De Croo joining our group of partners for his keynote speech. Yes, however, he will need another 5 more minutes. So I would like to suggest in the meantime, if you allow me, that we still had 2 more questions from the audience for the panelists. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give the opportunity. I don't know, is Michael Wimmer still?
Yes, I'm there.
Hi.
I'm there.
Because I had a question from Guy Gallet from Chopra Bisco for the ambassador, and he would like to know if you could give a short update on the impact of COVID-19 in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana in general, but maybe also related, of course, to the cocoa sector. What have you seen on the ground?
Sure. So I believe Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana within Africa are more preserved than other countries because they have a more diversified economy. And so I would say that first of all, COVID-19 is, as has been said before, is mostly within the large cities and mostly within the capitals of Abidjan and Accra, even though, I mean, there were cases outside. The measures have been also mostly focused on the capitals, which means that in the short term, of course, producers outside of Abidjan and Accra have been more preserved than we could fear. We also hear that's I mean, manufacturers and producers of chocolates have been working on even in cities, changing their producing methods and maintaining teams in the factories longer so that they can avoid travels. That's on the positive side. I would say, and that was also perhaps my question I can ask the panelists. They have explained what the impact of COVID-19 is on the projects. My question is, what is the impact of COVID-19 on living income of farmers on the longer term? Because we know, as we know, living income, it depends also on the price. How will COVID-19? What will the impacts be on the demand?
Sorry, I was on mute. So maybe a quick reaction linking to the demand side. Vicente, could you give a short reaction? And I'm happy in the meantime to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Development, no, not Development, Finance and Development Cooperation, Alexander De Croo. A quick reaction from you, Vicente, and then we go to the Minister, of course.
Yes, thanks. The truth is that at that moment, I don't really have the information about the demand from here. So of course the crisis has been difficult, but we don't have the idea on how it will be on the future. So I cannot really answer the question.
Okay, thank you, Vicente. So I'm now happy to give the floor to the Minister. Welcome, and feel free to join, of course. So we have just welcomed, Mr. Minister, we have just welcomed Olam as a new signatory, and Andrew Brooks gave an introduction to as why Olam is joining the partnership.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, great. That's good to hear. Great to meet in a bit different way than what we have been doing over the last years. I think many of you know that this partnership is a special one for me. A special one for a number of reasons. First of all, because it makes this cooperation between different players in development really concrete, and obviously because I like chocolate, like a lot of you. But in special times, I see there's a picture on the slideshow that shows the way we met, or the last time I met you. It seems far away, but I do hope that soon we might be able to meet again in person, in a safe way, but in person. But this is a good alternative, I think. Obviously, everyone knows that we are in very uncertain times for any type of business, but also very uncertain times on the human side as well. On the other side, we see that this is a moment where a lot of things are actually changing somewhat in a fundamental way. What I see is that today we are using digital tools on a much broader scale than what we would have thought before, and some people are actually almost forced to use it. And I think it is going to be there to stay. And I think we are at a tipping point for digital. I would hope we're also at a tipping point for sustainability. We have often talked about flattening the curve in the medical side. Maybe the second curve we need to flatten is some other type of curve, for example, CO2 emissions, and maybe broaden it to the whole sustainability agenda. We have, obviously, we are at a moment where in every of our national economies, we are confronted to very domestic problems. We have been jumping ship to help organizations with liquidity needs. We have done the same when now they are starting to have solvency needs. I think the last thing we want is that we get some kind of domino effect where part of our economy is being wiped out. But we need to make sure that the cooperation that we have with the South, that we keep it ongoing, and that trade, which is obviously under pressure these days, it has been for some time, but now it's even more under pressure. I think that we keep the positive side of trade, and especially the positive side of what we have been trying to do in this domain. I think that the recovery or the recovery plans that we have, and you have seen that the European Commission has also put something forward, of which I am quite positive, is linking recovery with also digital and sustainability. So I think this is a great opportunity for initiatives like this. Initiative like Beyond Chocolate, which I think had kind of an easy and a fairly simple starting point, was that entrepreneurship and trade could be very powerful tools to lift people out of poverty. This fits in the 2030 agenda, but this really is for me an example how you could put it into practice, centered around inclusive economic growth, which is based on profitability. And I continue saying that profitability is a key element, but profitability for everyone in the value chain, and making sure that everyone can have a decent living income. As a government, I also like these types of initiatives because we have done some financial investment to get this going, but we have a huge leverage effect because we see that so many other partners are bringing their resources, and resources sometimes financial, but also other types of resources. And this combination effect of public and private side, in my view, is a very, very strong one. Based on the success of this, we've also developed what we call the Business Partnership Facility, which we have financed with 2.5 million. And this facility is there to finance entrepreneurial initiatives which are linked around development, and disbursements of grants up to 200,000 euros are available for this. And this is an important one because we see that Beyond Chocolate is somewhat of a flagship project, but a flagship project that is now, I'm not going, well, I was going to say is infecting other initiatives, but maybe this is not the thing to say in these times, but we see that in other agricultural value chains, such as soy, coffee, palm oil, and so on, they're looking at initiatives which are comparable to Beyond Chocolate. There's absolutely no greater flattery than plagiarism. So I'm very happy if we see that others are being inspired by what we have been doing. in this spirit of partnership, we are preparing an MOU with our Dutch friends of Disco, our German friends of Gisco, and our Swiss friends of Swissco to build a sustainable cocoa platform. I think if we join forces between countries, we can have a greater impact. And I'm very excited by this initiative. I'm very happy to see that our Dutch, German, and Swiss colleagues are joining us here today. Maybe on the EU level, we are in a dialogue with European Commission to, in general, prove practices related to the cocoa value chain in the main exporting countries, being Ivory Coast, Ghana, and so on. And we want to support the EU with making a regional cocoa plan, which could then be linked to the Green Deal, which they are working on as well. And we see that the objectives that we had with Beyond Chocolate are actually being shared by them as well. Before I pass the virtual floor